Hey there, I'm Sara Porritt, and you are tuning in to the Hear Us Roar podcast. Join me for inspired conversations with Asian women, chatting about how ideas and passions can ignite truly transformative journeys. I honestly can't believe we're at the end of season 1. I came up with the idea for Hear Us Roar maybe around the fall of 2018. And it took me almost an entire year to launch the first episode. And if you were to ask me why, I would probably tell you it's a combination of overthinking it and fear. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, and maybe even worse than all of that, fear of indifference. Because my journey through music has played such a huge role in defining the woman that I am today. I felt like it was my calling to share the stories of other Asian American women who have also veered from convention in some way and become pioneers in their own right. So even though I want so much for you to care about these incredible conversations that I've had these past few months, at the end of the day, I have to acknowledge that your journey is yours and your decisions are yours to make. And my thought is, if you've tuned into the show in some way, likely there's a fire in you, a fire to create, to break the mold, to build up courage, and to have conversations about your culture, this culture that has shaped all of us for better or worse. So thank you so much for making it to the end of this chapter with me. I won't be gone for long. Right now I'm thinking maybe 2 months or so, just to give me a chance to collect my thoughts, take a quick break, and then I can come back to you with a new tribe of amazing guests. But don't worry, I won't be leaving you hanging, so stick around to the end of the episode. I'll tell you a few ways that we can continue to engage with each other while you eagerly await the launch of season 2. I know we're already into February, but for this final episode, I'd love to talk about setting yourself up for success in the new year. Especially now that the holiday stress has passed, hopefully you're re-energized by the coming spring. It's a really good time for all of us to just take a step back and reflect. So in full transparency, I completely gave up on resolutions this year. They're pretty much the same every year anyways. Eat healthier, exercise, meditate, all this stuff that's good for me. And it all sounds pretty basic, but it's really, really hard to live up to these goals. And I actually had a pretty big light bulb moment while I was reading Women's Health on a flight in the middle of a really, really stressful work week. And the title of the article is Make Space for Happy Vibes. And as a yoga teacher, so many of my Dharma talks in the beginning of class involve creating space. Because I really believe that until our cup is full, until we've allowed ourselves the respect and the luxury to create space within ourselves for other things, you, me, we as people just don't have anything to give if you're already brimming with so much to deal with. So I realized that I needed to Marie Kondo the heck out of more than just my apartment if I'm going to accomplish anything this year, if I have any plans of taking care of myself and putting myself first. So for anyone who's not familiar with Marie's wonderful work, she is an author and expert in the realm of organizing and tidying. And she actually has a really, really good streaming show if you ever want to just sit there and watch people clean. Her minimalist-inspired approach focuses on taking a look at all the stuff that you own, very methodically, category by category, and asking whether or not those things in those categories still bring you joy. And then if they don't, thanking them for their service and then retiring them respectfully. It sounds really simple, right? And at the risk of sounding like an Asian mom right now, I really want to give you some homework because this exercise has helped me to set myself up for success this year. So let's just take Marie's idea and expand it to the realm of anything that could be holding you back or giving you stress. Firstly, number 1, just set aside your resolutions because until you create space, they're most likely not going to happen. Sorry to break your heart. And just commit yourself to tidying up your life, getting that in order first, in order to create space for the things that you need and love. Second, Imagine in an ideal world how you would like your life to be this year. So what I love to do when I imagine my life and what I want my future to be like is I start with a feeling. So how do you want to feel? For me, words like this year, I want to feel purposeful. I want to feel invigorated. I want to feel like I am on an adventure. And then do that first before you get to the things that you've always wanted to do, but maybe just haven't made time for. Third, do a scan of your life and look for areas of tension. So this is the time for you to get out your phone, get out your computer, a piece of paper, something to just write on. And feel free to hit pause at any point in this episode to really give yourself an opportunity to think through this. Working your way from external to internal, take a look at number one. What are your obligations? And is there a way for them to be completed more efficiently? So what I mean by this is I used to spend half my Saturday doing laundry, and I do not like doing laundry or the dishes, but let's stick with laundry for now. I realized that it was so worth it for me to actually take my laundry down the street to a wash and fold so that someone can do it for me. And yes, it costs an extra $20 a week. But that $20 is the best money I've ever spent because it gave me my weekend back. And it doesn't have to be about spending more money. Maybe you can do a grocery pool if you don't want to make time for getting groceries. Do a pool with your friends where one person gets the groceries for 3 people who live in the same neighborhood. And maybe you can rotate. And then that way you don't have to go to the grocery store every week. But what I'm asking you to do here is to basically think about all the things that are taking up your physical waking hours, especially things that are chores that you maybe don't enjoy, and how you can be smarter about it. So number one is your obligations. And number two, ask yourself, what are some relationships that no longer serve you? And I'll be honest, this one's really, really hard for me. We all have people in our lives who maybe energetically, when you're with them, they just are energy vampires and they take and they don't really give quite as much. That's not contributing to your life. And take a look at people and relationships that maybe only scratch the surface of what a real relationship and a real friendship should be. They're just people that you have casual engagements with that take up your time but don't really add to your life, and vice versa. And as much as you may care about the people that fit into these categories and these descriptions, for your own sake, it really is best to just let go and maybe not dedicate quite as much time with those relationships. And then number 3 is psychological burdens. Some psychological burdens I think are a little bit more obvious. Maybe you feel like you always need to be plugged into technology, scrolling through Instagram, Facebook. Maybe you got a little FOMO going on. Sometimes I just go on Instagram and I scroll mindlessly. And it is good from time to time for us to ask about whether or not that particular activity, that particular action really serves you. And then are there some psychological burdens that aren't so obvious that require that you tune into your internal dialogue a bit more? So for instance, I tend to beat myself up over and over in my head for things that I no longer need to beat myself up over. I'm so hard on myself when I make a mistake or I get into an argument or something happens where I just ruminate on that negativity over and over and over again. And get this, you can decide not to be miserable. You can decide to take yourself out of that misery, and literally it's that easy. Take a look at your mental chatter. Is it mostly positive or is it negative? If you can even just start to shift that a little bit, it will be such a huge weight off your shoulders. And then finally, write something down in all 3 of these categories, from obligations to relationships to psychological burdens. And then starting from external, working your way to internal methodically, like Marie would do. Ask yourself whether or not the things that you've outlined in your list spark joy in your life. Does it bring you happiness? And if the answer is no, thank those things for their service, because we have to acknowledge that everything in our life at some point served a purpose, and that's fine. But maybe now it doesn't, so you can let go of it. Or in the case of certain errands, devise a plan to be smarter with your approach. I feel like using joy as a filter for creating space is just so brilliant. So Marie, if you are listening to this episode, please call me, please email me. I would love to have you on the show. And by the way, I really, really want to know from all of you what you think about the podcast. Give it to me for real. The good stuff, the bad stuff. I mean, this show is really for you. So let me know if there's content that's really sparking joy for you. And then if not, how can I make the conversation and the show more meaningful for you? And yes, besides Marie, you should definitely write me as well. And everything that you need to know in order to get in touch with me is on my website, www.hurpodcast.com, hurpodcast.com. And all my social channels are on there. Follow me on Instagram, Facebook, whatever you want, even though I know I just told you to stop scrolling on Instagram. My email is on there, so shoot me a note. It will come directly to me. And if you really want to stay connected with me during my hiatus, please, please, please sign up for the Hear Us Roar mailing list. It's also on the website because every week I will be checking in with you via email with stories and words of inspiration from some really incredible women who I will be featuring and supporting digitally. And there are also some dope bonus materials on the website. I'm just saying. There's a Spotify playlist from this season's guests who have told me that these are their favorite pump-up songs, as well as an Amazon reading list of their favorite and current reads. So go on there. There's tons to look at. And then before I sign off, I just want to gift you with a few words of wisdom from a couple of the guests from this season. So I asked them what they tell themselves in moments when they feel like giving up. Because let's be real, we all have those moments. And here's what they had to say.
Go forward. That's it. Yeah, so insider secret, I have one tattoo. I want to get a second tattoo. And the second tattoo is an arrow on my rib cage that's just pointing forward. And the idea of it and the sort of notion behind it is whenever it feels really hard, just look at that and remember the only thing I have to do, literally the only thing I have to do in life is just move forward. Doesn't matter if it's big, doesn't matter if it's small, doesn't matter if that's just like getting out of bed and like eating a meal. So that's what I tell myself, is just go for it.
You know what I tell myself if I really am centered? Breathe. Because it's like that embracing like the whole you. So if I'm in that mode, I want to embrace it, which is not always easy. So then I just try and get like super centered and just be in the moment. So that comes down to breathe.
What do I say to myself? I mean, I do think a lot of it is just like this moment. If you're having a bad moment, it might just be bad now, but like do things that generate beauty and it's all going to come back. And giving something beautiful to someone else, like it's going to come back to you at some point.
That's a fantastic question because everybody has these moments. You know, it's interesting. Both my brother and my husband have given me this advice, which is just show up. I mean, you hear it actually in yoga all the time. It's like show up on the mat and just like do the work. Literally, you know, even if I'm like cowering in my like, oh, you know, I have to do this hard thing or this scary thing, and I'm like still in the apartment, it's just like get out the door and then get to the next place you need to go, and like you just immediately pick up momentum, and then you're there and you're through it.
Every day is kind of like, it's fine, everything's fine. And then if it's not fine, it's still fine. Everything is kind of like moment to moment, you know, and just sort of it's moments of acceptance at every turn, and, you know, it's all good.
Actually, I first asked myself a question. Would I regret giving up? And if the answer is yes, I would regret, I would tell myself, don't be such a wimp.
And just fight past the fear.
Just fight past and just keep going.
Oh,
you can do it, because if your mom was able to raise 4 of you on a social worker's salary, you can do anything that you set your mind to.
And there you have it. Thank you so much for joining me for season 1 of the Hear Us Roar podcast. I am your host, Sara Porritt, and until next time.